Good evening. I'm glad you're here. This is a night walk through Istanbul, the city built where two continents meet. On a calm night, and I made it for you to fall asleep to. You don't need to do anything. You don't even need to listen closely. Think of my voice as something soft for your mind to rest on. And if you drift off somewhere between the ferry and the old stone cistern, that's exactly what I'm hoping for. Let your breathing slow down if you'd like. There's no rhythm to keep. 16 million people live in this city. Old and new stacked on top of each other like pages in the same book. And at this hour, most of them are asleep. The water between the continents is quiet. The old domes are dark. The new lights are dimming, one by one. I'll take you down to the water first. That's always where I begin. The last ferry of the night is nearly empty, and I have the back deck entirely to myself, which suits me fine. It eased away from the pier a few minutes ago, and now the city is sliding past on both sides at once, which is the strange, lovely fact of this particular stretch of water, and one I don't think I'll ever get used to in the best way. To my right, Europe. To my left, Asia. The strait between them is barely a mile wide here, dark and slow moving, carrying the cold breath of the Black Sea down toward the warmer water beyond. The ferry's engine has settled into its night voice, a low, steady thrum under the deckboards, more felt than heard. The kind of sound that seems to hold the whole boat together. Behind me, the wake unrolls in a long, pale seam, closing up again a little further back, as if the sea is tidying up after us. Lights line both shores, not the wild glow of a city center. This is the softer scattering of hillside apartments, tea houses closed for the night, the occasional minaret lit from below in a plain, steady white. I always look for it first, that white light on stone. There's something in the simplicity of it I find very moving, though I'd struggle to explain exactly why. Somewhere on the Asian side, a cluster of restaurant lights still burns along the water, small and warm. A late table or two lingering over the last of the evening. On the European side, higher up, a modern tower glows blue at its crown. New money, old water. Neither one in any hurry to explain itself to the other. I lean on the rail. The wind coming off the strait is cool and clean, carrying salt and faintly diesel. And under both of those, something green. The strait has hills on either side, and the hills are still breathing out the day's heat. A cargo ship passes, outbound, riding low and dark, lit only at bow and stern, headed for the Black Sea or beyond it. It doesn't hurry. Nothing on this water hurries at night. I've made this crossing more times than I can count, and I've never once seen anyone or anything in a rush upon it. Not the ferries with their unhurried schedule, not the fishing boats with their patient lines, not the strait itself, which has been the one door between two seas for longer than anyone can properly account for. Behind me, past the stern, the old city is coming into view around the point. A low, dark skyline pierced by domes and minarets. A shape I imagine you'll recognize even in silhouette, even at night, even if you've never been here before. That's where I'm taking you. But there's no hurry about that either. I promise you, there never is here. The ferry's wake keeps unrolling. The two shores keep trading their small lights back and forth across the water, like old friends checking in on each other. We'll dock soon, at the foot of a bridge where the fishermen never really stop. I do love that bridge. Let me show you. The ferry docks, and I step off into the cool air at the foot of the bridge. The Galata Bridge, the one that's always full of fishermen, day or night, in every kind of weather. I've never once crossed it and found it empty. And tonight is no exception, though at this hour there are only a handful of them left, spaced out along the rail like a loose string of beads. I like to walk the lower level first. There's a walkway right at the water, lined with restaurants that are mostly closed now, their chairs stacked, their signs dark, but a couple of them still have a light on. Someone doing the last of the cleaning, humming probably, though I can't hear it from here. The smell of grilled fish still hangs faintly in the air, hours old now, mixed with the cooler smell of the water itself. Up above, on the main deck, the fishermen keep their vigil. Each one has found his own spot along the rail, and each one looks perfectly happy with it. A folding stool, a thermos, a line dropped straight down into the dark water below. I stop near one older man for a moment. He doesn't look up. His line is still, his posture patient in a way I find, honestly, a little enviable, honestly. I've never caught a single fish in my life, but I understand the appeal of standing somewhere for hours with no particular urgency about the outcome. Above the fishermen, the tram tracks run the length of the bridge, and if you put your hand on the railing near them, you can feel the faintest warmth still coming up from the metal. The last tram of the night passed not long ago, and the rails haven't quite let go of it. I always find that detail strangely moving. A city's machinery cooling down slowly, the way a person might after a long day. The water below is the Golden Horn, meeting the Bosphorus just past the bridge. and at night it goes the deep, flat black that only harbors seem to manage. No waves to speak of, just a slow, heavy movement, catching whatever light falls on it and holding it still for a moment before letting go. A few boats are moored along the far bank, dark shapes with the occasional riding light, and the reflections of the bridge's own lamps run down into the water in long, wavering columns. I lean on the rail for a while, halfway across, where the view opens up best. Mosques on one side, the modern skyline rising up the hill on the other, and between them, all that patient black water. It's one of maybe 3 spots in this city where I can just stand there like an idiot and not feel like I'm wasting time. One of the fishermen finally gets a bite. I hear the small commotion of it, a soft exclamation, the others glancing over with polite interest and no real surprise. Then quiet again. There's a market just up from here that I love for a completely different reason. Not for standing still, but for the smell of it. Even at this hour, even closed. Let me take you there next. The Spice Bazaar is closed. All its heavy shutters pulled down and locked for the night. But you'd never know it from the smell alone. That's still very much awake. I walk in through a side passage that's left unlocked, one of the market workers' shortcuts, and the corridor beyond is dim and cool and absolutely saturated with scent. Cinnamon first, I think. Or maybe that's just the one I always notice first out of habit. Then saffron, sharper and stranger. And under both of them, something warmer and dustier. Dried chilies, probably, or the great burlap sacks of them that sit outside certain stalls by day. I couldn't name half of what I'm smelling. Cinnamon, saffron, something dusty I've never bothered to look up. The shutters themselves are corrugated metal, painted years ago in colors that have mostly worn back down to the metal underneath. And each one is stamped with a number and a family name. Faded gold on faded green. I run my hand along a few of them as I pass. Someone's grandfather started that stall, probably. Someone's daughter runs it now, or will. Through the gaps in one particular grate, there's a thin line of warm light. Someone's still inside, doing inventory maybe, or simply not ready to go home yet. I don't linger there. It feels like their hour, not mine. The stone floor here has been worn into a long, shallow groove down the center of the corridor. The path everyone takes without thinking. Generation after generation, choosing the exact same line through the building. I find that oddly comforting. That a floor can hold the memory of that many footsteps and simply keep going. At the far end, The corridor opens toward a smaller courtyard, and there's a fountain there, unremarkable by day, barely a trickle. But at night, the sound of it carries the whole length of the empty market. I stand and listen to it for a minute. It's the only sound in the whole building. There's a dumb little game I play here, walking out, trying to guess the spices in order, walking back out the way I came. Cinnamon to saffron, to something I still can't quite name. I never get it fully right. I don't think I'm meant to. Past the market, the streets climb a little toward one of the oldest and largest rooms in the entire city. One that isn't a room at all anymore, in the way you'd expect. It used to hold water for 500,000 people. Tonight, like the market, it's officially closed. That's never stopped me before. Come with me. I want to show you the cistern by day. This place is full of tourists, myself among them more than once. Flash photography, a raised walkway, a gift shop by the exit. Not that I'm above it. I've been one of those tourists plenty of times. Phone out, everything. But at night, after the last group has filed out and the lights have been turned down to almost nothing, the cistern turns into a different place altogether. And it's this version I keep coming back for. The staff let me in through the side door. I've gotten to know a few of them over the years, the way you do with a place you love enough to keep returning to. Down the stairs, the air changes immediately. Cooler, and carrying that particular smell of old, wet stone that I don't think exists anywhere else in the city. Then the columns, rows and rows of them, marble, rising straight out of black water. And with the lights this low, you can only really see the nearest few clearly. The rest recede into a darkness that seems to go on much further than the walls actually allow. A few accent lights remain on, low and reddish, just enough to catch the top of a column here or there, and to lay a faint colored path across the water's surface. I come here, if I'm honest, for one particular sound. There. Did you catch it? A single drop, somewhere off in the dark, falling from the brick ceiling into the lake below. It isn't loud on its own, but this room does something extraordinary with it. Takes that one small sound and hands it from column to column, softly, again and again, so that a single drop becomes something closer to a held note, fading out slowly across the whole space before the next one falls, somewhere else entirely, and starts the same quiet conversation over again. Someone told me once there are 300 and something columns. Might be 336. I've never bothered to count them myself, And standing here, I couldn't care less which number is right. There's a low stone ledge along the near wall, dry, clearly meant for exactly this, for standing still and listening. I come here more than I probably should admit, especially on nights when the city above feels like too much. Being underneath the whole noisy city, in a room built just to hold water, does something to my head that I can't really explain and don't feel like trying to. The cold down here is mild, the same, I imagine, in every season. And the columns never seem to tire of their reflections, and the water never seems in any hurry to do anything at all. When I finally climb back up the stairs, the night air always feels a little warmer than I remember it, and the city noise comes back one step at a time, the way it should. There's a square near here I want to show you next, quieter than you'd expect, with 6 slender towers standing watch over it in the dark. Let's go up. The square opens up quite suddenly after the narrow streets around the cistern, and I always feel it before I quite see it. That particular sensation of space arriving all at once. 6 minarets, which is unusual. Most mosques make do with 1 or 2, or 4 if they're feeling ambitious. And there's a story about why this one has 6 that I won't get into. I've heard 3 different versions over the years, and honestly can't remember which one I liked best. What I can tell you is how it looks at this hour. Pale stone going faintly blue in the dark. Each minaret lit from its base in a plain, steady white, rising very straight against a sky that has, tonight, decided to be almost cloudless. The fountain in the center isn't running. It's turned off overnight, which I only learned after wondering about it for years. But the pool still holds a little water, black and still, doubling the minarets in it, so that the whole building seems to hang there twice, once upright and once upside down, meeting itself at the waterline. I like to sit on the low wall near the fountain rather than walk the square itself. There's a bench, technically a few meters off, but I like the wall better. The stone's cooler, it's closer to the ground, and from there I get the whole courtyard laid out exactly how I want it. Mosque on one side, the old racetrack somewhere behind me, the modern city's glow just visible over the rooftops beyond the walls, doing its own thing entirely, unconcerned with any of this. A cat crosses the courtyard, unbothered by the emptiness, taking the most direct possible line from one shadow to another. I've come to think of the cats here as unofficial caretakers of the place. They seem to know every corner of it far better than I ever will, and to trust it completely. There's a particular quality to silence in a very large, open space. I haven't found it anywhere else. not the hush of a small room, but something wider, almost generous. Room enough for the silence to spread out and settle rather than press in. Big, empty squares at night do something for me that small, quiet rooms never quite manage. Nothing here wants anything from me. I stay a while, on my wall, in my usual spot. The pool doesn't ripple. The minarets don't move. Somewhere past the walls, a taxi passes, then nothing again. There's a tower not far from here that I actually love more than this square. Mostly for the climb, and for what waits at the top. Come with me. It's a good walk, and I promise you the view is worth every step. The tower is old, genuinely old, in a city where that word gets used rather loosely. And the stairs inside are narrow enough that I always have to go up a little sideways, one hand trailing the cool stone wall the whole way. I've made this climb more times than I can count, and it's never once felt like a chore. The day it does, I'll know something's off with me, then the top, and the wind, which is always stronger up here than the streets below would suggest, and the whole city all at once. I have a particular way I like to look at it, and I'll share it with you for what it's worth. I always start with the old city first. The domes, low and gray-blue in the dark. The minarets scattered among them like something someone placed there very deliberately. Though of course nobody did. Not all at once. Not on purpose. Then I let my eyes drift toward the Golden Horn, curling away below, dark and glinting where a boat's light happens to catch it. And only after that do I let myself look at the new city. The towers on the far ridge, lit up in their confident modern way, blue and white, and in one case I've never quite forgiven, a rather aggressive red. What strikes me most every single time is how little those two versions of the city seem to mind each other. 16 centuries of learning to share one skyline. I don't know if that's wisdom or just exhaustion. Either way, it gets to me a little every time. And I've never found a better word for it than moving, even though it's not quite right. Lights everywhere, of course. That's the whole point of looking at any city from above at night. Old lamps, low and warm, tracing the shape of the old streets. New lights, sharper, following the newer roads that don't care at all about following the old ones. Ships out on the water, patient, waiting their turn. Somewhere down there, impossibly small, a single illuminated tram makes its slow way along a line I happen to know quite well. I lean against the railing at the point where the wind is strongest, which is, admittedly, my favorite spot precisely because of that. It's cold up here in a way the streets below never quite manage, and I like that too. It makes the warmth waiting for me later feel more deserved somehow. I could stay much longer than I usually allow myself. There's always somewhere else I want to show you. Down below, in one of the newer neighborhoods, there's a small cafe I'm rather fond of. Closed for the night now, but I like the way it smells even through a locked door. Let's go find it. The neighborhood changes character entirely on the way down from the tower. Narrower streets give way to slightly wider ones, old shop fronts to newer signage, and eventually to the kind of street I have a particular weakness for. Galleries mostly closed for the night, a record shop with its lights off, and tucked into a corner I always have to look for slightly, the cafe. It's shut, of course, has been for hours, but I like it precisely for that. For the version of it that only exists when no one's inside. Through the glass, I can see the espresso machine catching what little light comes in from the street. A dull gleam along its chrome, and behind the counter, a row of cups stacked upside down, drying from the last wash of the evening. I come here most mornings when I'm in this part of the city, and I've gotten embarrassingly attached to a coffee shop that has no idea who I am beyond a regular face. There's a particular table by the window I prefer, though I'd never admit that to the staff. I like to think I'm subtle about it. The smell reaches me even through the closed door. That specific, slightly burnt sweetness of ground coffee that clings to a room long after the machines have gone quiet, mixed with something floral, jasmine maybe, from a candle they burn some evenings. I genuinely don't know if I'm smelling any of that, or just remembering it hard enough that my brain fakes it. Doesn't matter either way. On the counter, half hidden by the register, sits a small dish with the last of the day's Turkish coffee grounds, thick and dark, waiting to be tipped out in the morning. I have opinions about how to read fortunes in coffee grounds that I won't bore you with, mostly because I don't actually believe any of it. But I turn the cup over and check anyway, every time, like clockwork. A cat, a different one from the square, I think, though it's hard to be entirely sure in this city, is curled on the doorstep, entirely unbothered by the cool concrete, the way cats manage to be unbothered by nearly everything. I stand a moment longer than is strictly necessary, the way I tend to do here. Then I let it go and turn back toward the water, because there's somewhere else I want you to hear before the night is over. The sound this whole city makes once or twice a night that stops nearly everyone in their tracks for just a few seconds, myself included. Let's walk toward it slowly. It's not far. I've timed this walk deliberately, if I'm honest with you. I wanted us to be somewhere quiet, somewhere with a little height and a little distance when it happens. We're on a small rise now, a street of shuttered apartment buildings with a gap between two of them that gives onto a view of 3 or 4 minarets at once, lit the same plain white as always, patient against the dark. I've stood in this exact spot more times than I can count, always for the same reason. Listen, it begins the way it always begins. A single voice, somewhere off toward the nearest minaret, rising into the night in a long, unhurried phrase. I won't try to describe the melody to you, because I don't think I could do it justice. And pinning it down too exactly always feels like it flattens the thing. What I can tell you is the shape of the moment itself. The voice rises, holds, and for those few seconds, something in the whole street seems to lean toward it and go still. Then, from further off, a second voice answers. Not in unison, not quite, but close enough that the two overlap slightly. One call catching the tail end of another, drifting across the rooftops from different directions, until the whole quarter seems to be holding the same long note from several places at once. I've heard this 1,000 times now, and it has never once become ordinary to me. I don't practice myself. I want to be honest with you about that, in case it matters. But I've grown to love this sound without any right to it, just from living next to it long enough. The way I imagine people who grow up near the sea come to love the specific sound of a particular tide, whether or not they ever set foot in a boat. The street holds its stillness for the length of the call, and then, gradually, lets go of it. A shutter creaks somewhere. A scooter starts up 2 streets over. The ordinary night resumes exactly where it left off. There's something strange about watching a whole neighborhood let its breath out at once. I stay a little longer than the sound itself lasts, the way I always do. Then I turn us back toward the water, because there's one more crossing I want to make with you tonight, and an old wooden house waiting on the far shore that I think you'll like even more than the cafe. Come, the tram will take us most of the way. The tram takes us most of the way, and then it stops for good. This is the end of the line, the depot where they park for the night. And I always find that a slightly funny thing to witness. A tram, motionless. It looks wrong somehow, like seeing a teacher outside of school. There are maybe 6 of them lined up under the covered platform. Dark, doors shut, waiting for the morning shift. The overhead wires still catch a bit of light and throw it back down. Thin silver lines crossing above us. One of the trams still has its interior lights on For some reason, nobody's inside. I checked, and it sits there, glowing softly, like it forgot to go to sleep with the others. I used to take this line every day for almost a year, back when I lived a few stops further up. And there's a particular smell to the platform at night that takes me right back to that. Hot metal cooling down, a bit of ozone, something faintly like rain on a sidewalk, even when it hasn't rained. I don't know the technical reason for that smell. I've never looked it up. I think I like not knowing. A station worker is closing up somewhere behind the ticket booth. I hear more than see him. A metal shutter coming down, keys, the particular scrape of a chair being pushed under a desk. He doesn't see me standing here, or if he does, he doesn't mind. There's a bench on the platform, cold even through my coat, and I sit for a minute, mostly because I like watching trams up close when they're not moving. You don't really look at them properly when you're riding one. Now I can see the scratches along the paint near the doors. A sticker half peeled off near the driver's window. Someone's initials scratched into the paint of the third car back. Small human marks on a big gray machine. Past the depot, the road runs down toward the water again. And this is where the city starts to feel different to me. Quieter, older, less interested in being impressive. There's a house down there I want you to see. It's been standing a very long time, and it doesn't get many visitors at this hour, which is exactly why I like it. Come on, it's a short walk from here, and the water's on our side the whole way. The house is wood, all of it, 3 floors, painted a red that's gone soft and chalky with age, and it leans very slightly toward the water in a way that would probably worry an engineer and doesn't worry me at all. It's been here since the 1800s. Somebody's family has owned it that whole time, I think, though I don't actually know the details. I just know it's never been anything other than a house, which feels rare here. One window on the second floor still has a light on. Yellow, warm, a lamp probably, not the overhead kind. I like to imagine someone up late reading, though for all I know, it's just a light somebody forgot to switch off. I prefer my version. The water comes right up to the house, actually touches the wooden posts it's built on, and I can hear it doing its quiet work against the wood. Not waves exactly, more like the water is patting the house, checking it's still there, the way you'd check on someone sleeping. And then, a little further out, past the old house entirely, there are lights that don't belong to this century at all. A yacht, anchored for the night, strings of white bulbs along its deck, throwing long, wobbly reflections across the water that stretch almost all the way to where I'm standing. It's enormous. It's probably worth more than every house on this shore combined. And it sits there, 20 meters from a 200-year-old wooden house. And neither one seems to mind the other in the slightest. I love that about this stretch of water, if I'm being honest. Nobody explained to the yacht that it's supposed to feel out of place here. Nobody explained to the old house that it should feel outdone. They just both exist at the same time, on the same 50 meters of coastline, doing their own separate things. A dog barks once somewhere up the hill behind the house, then stops, like it changed its mind about whatever it was barking at. I stand here longer than I mean to, every single time. There's a bench a little further along, and I usually end up there instead of walking straight past like I planned to. But it's late, and there's a bed waiting a few streets from here. An old building, done up nicely inside. The kind of place where they've kept the bones of the house and quietly replaced everything else. I think you'll like it. I always sleep well there. This way, just up the hill, then left. The building is old stone, maybe 200 years. And somebody's clearly spent real money making sure it doesn't feel that way the moment you walk in. The stairs still creak in the way old stairs do. They didn't fix that, or couldn't, or maybe just didn't want to. But the room at the top is simple and comfortable in a way that's very obviously modern. A wooden beam runs across the ceiling, thick, dark, original to the building. And right under it, a plain white bed that could belong in any decent hotel anywhere in the world. I like that combination more than I probably should. Old bones, new mattress. Someone made a real decision about that, and I approve of it completely. There's a small lamp on the nightstand. Warm light, nothing fancy, and a window that looks out at a narrow strip of the water we walked beside earlier. I can just make out a light or two still on across the strait, and somewhere further along, the yacht, still glowing, still not caring that it doesn't belong. I sit on the edge of the bed. It's firmer than I expect every single time. And then, a second later, exactly right. The walls are thick enough that the street noise doesn't really reach me. Just a general softness, the sense of a city rather than any specific sound of it. And then, because this always happens, and I always half expect it, the call comes again, one last time, from much further away now, thin enough that I'd miss it completely if I weren't already listening for it. Just the very end of it, really. A voice, and then not. No idea why that sound, that far away, makes me sleepier instead of more awake. It just does. The lamp is the only light in the room now. I could turn it off. I probably will in a minute. But I like looking at it a bit longer first. The way the light sits on the wooden beam above me, warm on old, dark wood. Tomorrow, this city will be loud again. The ferries, the trams, the market pulling up its shutters, someone shouting about fish, somebody's espresso machine hissing back to life. None of that is my problem right now. That's the whole point of this hour. I'm going to stop talking soon. Just a little more, and then I'll leave you to it. So that's tonight's walk. We came off the ferry together. Europe on one side, Asia on the other. We stood on the bridge while the fishermen waited for something to bite. We walked through a market that was closed, but still smelled like it wasn't. We stood underneath the whole city, listening to one drop of water talk to itself in the dark. We sat by a fountain that wasn't running. We climbed a tower for the view I never get tired of. I showed you my coffee shop, the one that doesn't know I exist. We heard the call go out across the rooftops. Twice, closer and then very far. We stood by an old wooden house with a yacht anchored just past it, both of them minding their own business. And now you're here, in this room I like so much, with the lamp still on and the water somewhere just outside the window. The city's fine without us. It always is. The trams will start again in a few hours. The market will open. Someone will already be awake before any of us, doing something ordinary. So let it all get quiet now. Let the water get quiet. Let the lamp get quiet. Let me get quiet too. If you're still awake, that's all right. There's nowhere you need to be. And if you left me somewhere back at the cistern, or the tower, or the old house by the water, then you did exactly what I wanted you to do. Sleep well. I'll be here next time, somewhere else old, whenever you're ready. Good night.